Hey, what's up, Ghostbusters Ireland fans? You've got Paul here with you for the next installment of Build the Ecto. So this is Build the Ecto issue 3 we're going to cover today. So I'm working again between the split screens, so I'm talking to you guys, but we're going to be looking at everything I'm building here. So issue 3 is quite a big issue. There's a lot of stuff to it. A thick magazine. We get our first wheel. We get more chrome bumpers, engine half, and a gearbox half as well. So we'll look at the magazine first, and we will then go through the build. So what I've got with me at the minute is the part we've already constructed and the little Ecto 1 number plate. Now, just to point out as well, we received these patches from Eagle Moss. So I'll show these on the other camera, let you guys see them. So you get two lovely Ecto 1 patches as well to do with what you like. So I'm not too sure what we're going to do with those just yet. And also an Ecto 1 cap that you can see me wearing. That arrived in the post today. So that is now my official Ecto 1 building cap. So on with this magazine. So I'm going to reposition the camera just so we can see. Okay, so again, beautiful, beautiful illustrations the whole way through this magazine. So stages 3 to 6. So we can see what we've got in a bit more detail here. So we've car part stage 3. So it goes through what our different parts are. Car part stage 4, which is the wheel. Move my mouse over. Car part stage 5, the gearbox and bell housing, and then the left-hand engine block, and it looks like the exhaust manifold. Attention to detail here is unreal because we actually have Cadillac on the cylinder block head. It's amazing, attention to detail. Okay, so first section details stage 3, how to build the bumper and the fog lights. So we'll come back and we'll do that and how they go together to give us the whole assembled piece. Then we have our left front wheel and tyre, so we can see what we need to do with that. And then we have the gearbox. Okay, so the gearbox shows you where the gearbox is located in the Ecto and what we need to do to build it. And then we have the engine. So as you can see, this is a really, really big build this week. Now, we have the history of Slimer. So, effect artists Steve Johnson, John Bruno and Mark Brian Wilson reveal how the ghost formerly known as Onion Head was brought to screen. So this is one of the most memorable scenes of Ghostbusters. There's a picture of Slimer having a bit of a laugh. You can just tell that ghost smells just looking at him. That bad breath. Like, look at the detail in his teeth, and that is disgusting. And there's the original sculpt of Slimer. So he was shot against a black screen and composited with double exposure, so he would be transparent. So it means they must have filmed twice, so then they could overlay the two films so it looked like he wasn't really there. And Mark Brian Wilson was inside the suit. Additional puppeteers manipulated Slimer's facial expressions using cables and joysticks. So Mark Brian Wilson played the part of Slimer in Ghostbusters 1, and it was a friend of Ghostbusters Ireland, Robin Shelby, that was Slimer in Ghostbusters 2. So we see all the different models of Slimer they had. There's a little bit here on Mark Brian Wilson. Then we have some memories of Harold Ramis, Egon Spengler. So this is actually taken from the book Life with My Dad by Harold Ramis, Ghostbusters' Daughter. We have that book here, and we will actually look at it in a coming video, one of our Ghostbusters Ireland Saturday videos. So it's taken from this book. So we will look at that in one of our coming videos. So some great photos. Like, here's a photograph. Now this says Egon working on the containment unit. No, he's working on a trap because you can see the resistor sidebar on it. Must have a trap on the wall. He's working on it. Egon with Janine outside 55 Central Park West, and Egon with his dose meter checking for background radiation. And then we have, it looks like Bill Murray and Harold Ramis messing about outside the firehouse. Then we have another publicity shot from inside the firehouse. So yeah, it's a really interesting read. Violet Ramis still details here how she was there when they filmed what she called the Exorcist moment, where Dana levitated above the bed. She was in the room whenever that was all set up and filmed. So no CGI, no trickery. This was all done by physical effects, using cables and pulleys to lift her. Then we have a little bit at the end. So a monthly list of all things that makes Ghostbusters great. So yeah, just the comedy behind it, the Saturday Night Live links, the comedy that drove Ghostbusters to be so popular. And then we see what's coming in issue 4. So it looks like more parts, more engine parts, more lots of little fiddly parts. So what we'll do is we will crack on into our build. So step 3 is where we're up to. So bumper and fog lights. Let me just position our camera so we can see what we're doing. There we go. And I still got you guys there. So bumper and fog lights. So in this phase you will continue to build the front face of the Ecto 1, this time assembling and fitting the front bumper and the fog lights. So we have our parts locator, which shows us where it is. Unpack all parts carefully. To avoid losing any of the smaller pieces, work on a tray or keep the parts in a bowl until they're assembled, which is what I said last week with our parts 1 and 2. Keep all your spare parts safe. So let's open it. So that is this part. Open this up. So I just use my screwdriver just to pierce the side and open up. So there's lots of little screws. We can see the fog lights. We can see front bumper too. So the first thing we're going to do is actually install the number plate. It's a metal number plate. It's slightly embossed, which is what the real-time number plates of those days would have been like in New York City. Okay, so check the packaging. We don't throw anything out. We'll leave all the bits in the packaging that we're not using until we come to use them. So we use screws from BM Bravo Mike. So 2 of those. We take this part and we mount. No, we don't take this part. Sorry. We take this part out of the build, so we can see the top there where the number plate sits. We take our lovely Ecto 1 number plate. It goes in. It'll look really good sitting in that chrome. And then we use 2 of the BM screws to hold that into place. So let me just open up the little screw bag again. We don't rip the bags open because then we can reseal them and reuse the bags if we need to for any spare parts, or if there's any leftover bits for another week's build. So we go for BM. Again, it's just because I've got fat fingers. Can be a little fiddly. There we go. It's going in nicely. And remember, we don't over tighten. Okay. So that's in. We put the second one in. Just take your time. And we're just using the little screwdriver that was provided with issue 1. That's good for it. So there we go. Looks the business, doesn't it? I like that a lot. Okay, so that's step 1 done. Step 2, assembling the left fog light casing. So we take the front left, take the left fog light lenses and push the part into place in the left fog light figure B. Finally, fix the inner fog light frame behind the innermost lens using 2 AP screws. And the left outer frame is marked with an L1 and the left one's marked with an L2. So this is the part. You can actually see the outer of it then, all this beautiful chrome work. And then we have to put in our light lenses that I nearly can't see. So they are marked R and L. so we can see them. Now, are they sighted? I don't believe they are, but we'll see. So they go in first. Again, it's a bit fiddly just, but that's me having fat fingers. Okay, so that's in. Hopefully you can see that. And then we look for L1, so it's labelled L1. So it only goes in one way. Let me see. So that actually came out. So L1 and L2 is how they're labelled. So that's L2. And that is L1. So we just pop that in. It sits in like that. Now, it looks like L1 is potentially missing a screw. So I've done this the wrong way around, is my problem. That's why I couldn't see what the screw I was looking for was. So again, I'm not paying attention, right? Need to pay attention. So we have a little bit at the top, a little bit here. And then that presses in. It only goes in one way, which I now have worked out. Like so. And let me just put my phone on mute because people like to message me. And right, so that's that pushed in. So we now use L1, which will go in and sit like that. And then that needs 2 of the AP screws to put it into place. So we have quite a large bag of AP screws. So I'm going to use quite a few of these, I'm sure. Now this might be fiddly. Now it helps that I've actually got the right bit we're working on. So there we go. Right, position the screw. The screws are magnetized, which is nice. There we go. Oh, nope. It's hard trying to do this in front of a camera when I would instinctively be trying to pull this close to my body to fix. So there we go. And tighten. So I'm not going to tighten this all the way up because I want to make sure that we hit the second screw into its proper home and the screws located before we tighten them both up. Just in case there's going to be a bit of play here. I don't want to tighten it up and have it sitting in the wrong position. So let's see. I'll use my thumb to guide it a bit. And then in it goes. Guide it in. And then now, because that's into position, we can tighten that right up. So that's light 1 in, so we can see we've got our fog light inside there now, and then we'll have to do the same for this one. So that will be L2. So the same thing applies. We make sure it's positioned correctly. We just guide it in with the screwdriver to line it up. It actually sits there quite nicely. And then we use our AP screws. Just balance that. These are AP screws. Just to get that on the thread. There we go. That's on the thread. And okay, we'll find this one now. Tighten, 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 tighten. And that's the second screw going in, so we can drive those both home. And there we go. We can see that light. It looks fantastic. So I'll move those two screws over because they're going to be used in the next stage, and then turn the page. Although I think I know what the next step's going to be. Okay, so we need to do the same now for the right. Okay. So what am I going to do this time? I'm going to make sure I correctly orient the part before I start. So the right fog light casing. So that was our left. Let's just line it up and see. Oh, sorry, that was our left. So this is our right. So let's see who is. And there we go. Press that in. So that's the little light in there. And now we use R1 and R2. So I just want to make sure that this little thing, the little light that presses in, isn't sided. Just trying it around in the other orientation, just so we can see. And it must be. Nope. It sits in both ways. Sits in both ways. Actually sits in, yeah, both ways. So looking at the picture, we're going to make sure our orientation is correct here. So the little bubble bit to the top, and then we put in R1. So the R1 identification will sit on, we can read the text, we'll place that in, and we'll get our screwdriver loaded with the next two screws. There's one, there's two. So what we'll do is we'll just balance that against the left light cluster. And in we go. And we'll tighten that up. Now we're going to do the same as what we've done with the other one. Not send it home all the way. We'll just tighten it up a little bit. Just allows us then to position and do that afterwards. So guide it with my thumb again. Just put my thumb in there. Screw sits on the screwdriver nicely. There we go. And there we go. So that's one done, and now the other one to do. R2. Which sits in like that, and we need another two of our AP screws. So just tip two out. Oh, there we go. And that's that. Where's our light cluster we're working on? Here it is. And it goes. And again, for the fourth and final time, put the screw in, only half tighten it, so then you can still move the light cluster about if you need to. Just push the screw onto the tip of the screwdriver like so. And there we go, it clicks into place. And of course this last one's going to be the tricky one, isn't it? And now we just send that home, and that's that stage finished. So you can see there is quite a bit of involved work in this every week. It's not just clipped together, it is quite intricate building. Okay, so now we need to assemble the front bumper. So we take our light casings, so again, make sure we position them right, don't do a pawl and get them the wrong way around. So there is the bumper, and we use screw Delta Papa to drive this home. So I saw these are quite beefy screws. And we need 5 of them, I think, because we're going to use them in the next stage as well. So just tip them out, screwdriver's primed and ready. Slime blower primed and ready. Or primed and set, I think it was. Wouldn't be. Okay. Make sure I get the other this lined up right. So this is a little bit tricky. That's the screw biting now. You can feel it biting into the plastic. So I can see why they do this over. They use multiple connectors for this because there's a bit of a gap there, but I'll pull it all together when it's ready. And we do the same on the other side. So I think what I'll do is I'll actually just put the screw directly in there this time, directly into the hole. Offer it up. Tighten away. Yes, that was much easier. So right now we're getting a look at the full width of the car nearly. Yep. There we go. Ho 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 ho, look at that. Handsome devil, isn't it? And now, fixing the bumper to the grille. So locate the front grille section you've already assembled. You will notice there's 3 tabs at the bottom with screw holes drilled in. Line up these holes with the 3 screw holes found in the top right of the 2 fog light casings and the front bumper. So, here we go. So this comes onto it from the back, i.e. that goes on from the front then, the bumper. Just do a test fit first. What screws do we use? We use the DP screws. Again, I'll just put that one screw in for now. And I'll put the middle one in first because then that gives me more options of manipulation. Okay, it's not tight all the way, but it will be soon. Tighten up number 2. There we go. And then there's one more screw. There's the hole perfectly in line, just here. Home it goes. And there we go. Magnificent is the only word I can describe that with. That's fantastic looking. The quality is unreal. This is going to be a beautiful model when it's finished. Okay, so that's stage 3 built. I'll put the spare DP screws back in the bag. So we've got 2 of those that are spare. We've got some AP screws as well. What's that? That is a BM screw. So that was what we used, I think, for the number plate. We keep our spare screws, remember, keep them somewhere safe and away from small children and animals. So, turn our page, see what we've got. Stage 4. Okay, left front wheel and tyre. In this stage you will fix the tyre to the left front wheel. You've also received the hub and centre caps to be fitted later. So again, we keep those safe in our spare parts box. There's a fair bit of weight to this. I'm guessing that hub is metal. Okay, so no parts left in that. We have a nice solid rubber tire. Like I was expecting it to be soft and squishy. She is not. We have metal hub, all metal parts. So that must be our metal hub cap, which goes in the middle. Can't know if the camera will focus on that. So keep that safe anyway. So what do we do here? So we fit the outer wheel to the tire. So that is this piece. Even look at the detail on this, right? Look, there's a little tire valve for blowing up the tires. That is amazing. Fair play, Eagle Moss. Okay, you fit that into the center. Now it doesn't matter which side of the tire it goes into, because both sides of the tire are the same. They're white wall or white side walled Firestones. That just presses in, like so. Now we fit the inner wheel, so there's alignment for this. It will press in like so. Hang on, now we want to line this up before we press her in, because there's 3 screw holes in here. That looks good, and we use the CM Charlie Mike screws, so we have 4 of them. There's 1 spare. And then this will fit onto the front axle. So the Cadillacs were rear wheel drive, and they were automatics as well, so the gearbox done all that work. Let me just line this up a bit better. That looks better. Yes, so the actual Cadillacs were all rear wheel drive. They had a V6 engine which produced 300 horsepower, which is a lot of horsepower even by today's standards. These are the right screws, yeah, CM. There we go, just that wasn't pressed all the way in. Yep, and they were automatic gearboxes, so a little bit different from today. The gear shifter was on the column, the steering column. That's it now. And they used to park, reverse, drive, and neutral. That's how they used to change gear, and they went down them. Only 2 pedals because there was no clutch. But we'll get to discover all this together as we get to that part of the build. And the last screw. Oh, I'll have to find that one later. I've dropped one on my floor, but I will find it. There we go, that one's going in now, so just lift it up, press it in. That's that. So that is in. There's a hubcap, which I imagine then goes over that too, but look, attention to detail. We've got the steel pressed wheel from the 50s, okay, and then the hubcap goes over the top of that. So there's actually a hole in the hubcap for the tire valve to come out. I like that a lot. There we go, that's how it'll sit in there. So, and then the little center cap for the hub will go in. So there's going to be a screw that goes underneath that to hold this onto the axle. So that's this stage finished. I'll move it out of the way and keep it safe. Now, stage 5, the gearbox. So, find this section. Big beefy parts, and these sections are actually now labelled as well 005. So we know we've got the right part open. So let's see, is these stapled? So I don't want to cut my fingers on staples. So there's an easy way to open it. Little bag of screws. Make sure you get all the parts out of the outer packaging. So there's 2 bags of screws in part 5, and you don't want to lose those. And yep, they're double wrapped. in the plastic. There we go. And what's the gearbox outer made of? It's made out of metal. So, point one is fixing the gearbox connector. So take the gearbox connector and place it on a narrow end of the bell housing as shown in figure A. Secure from the underside using 2 DM screws. So the little part we want to use is this. Okay, we can see there's a lip on it which lifts it up and elevates it. There's a square and a circle on it too. And we want to make sure we've got the correct orientation. So we want to orient the bit to the right, that will then sit on it, and the 2 DM screws come through from the back. So yeah, automatic gearbox. I think it was 3-speed. When you look at some automatic boxes of today that are 7 or 8-speed. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just pass this screw through. Oh. Again, just try this again. Okay. And this part itself doesn't look sighted. So we'll get it roughly lined up like we did the other parts, and then we'll proceed from there. Working with metal parts I think is more forgiving than the plastic parts, because plastic parts you put a screw in too tight, it'll bore itself through, whereas metal should at least stop. There we go, that's that. It's tight, it's safe, it's secure. That's that part done. Okay, so assembling the bell housing. So insert the long end of the bell housing connector. So it actually looks like this gearbox will work. So we get our position right, so we make sure we've got the flat edge to the bottom, the curve, and then this looks like it passes through. So it sits like that. So we use 2 more of these DM screws. There's the first one. Tighten it up. And the second one. There we go, just tighten those 2 up, send them home. So don't want that to be loose. I mean, the attention to detail in this, I mean, this is just the internal workings of the gearbox we're assembling at this point. That's fantastic. I keep saying that about this model, the attention to detail. I mean, the all-up weight when it's built is going to be 14.5 kilos. So, like, that's 2 newborn babies. There we go. And okay, so they think these 2 parts go together. So push the plate into the circular frame in the bottom of the bell housing. Screw the holes so the screw holes are aligned. Fasten using 3 EM Ecto mic screws. So it goes in like so. And sits like that. There's no twisting, there's no torquing on it, it's fine. That'll sit in there quite nicely. So we use 3 of the EM screws. So first thing, tidy up your other screws that are not used yet. And we use 3 of these. There we go. And I'll just use my screwdriver again, just to line up. And then they go home like so. Not much tightening needed on them. And there we go, come on. There's a great deal of building in this. Hopefully you guys will get to see it at cons once it's all built. There we go, and one more. Boom, it goes. It's in there, nice and tight. That's it. So that's the bell housing for the gearbox. Next, we have the actual gearbox components itself. So locate the wider notch at the end of the gearbox housing left. So we use our pictures for our orientation. So it'll sit like that. Then this part comes. Does it? No, it doesn't. Because we have to turn it around this way. That's it. So I was not looking at the pictures. There's a nice little metal lip that will sit into, like so. And then we use one of the DM screws. I find sometimes the text can be a bit confusing. I'm a visual learner myself. I learn by seeing pictures and by actually doing it. Everybody learns differently, which is good, as the world takes all sorts. So that DM screw goes in. Quite a long thread on it, so take a bit more tightening. And just tighten it up a little bit more. That's that. And we now then put on the opposing side of the gearbox, and we use 2 of the EM screws. So just pop this out very gently. Okay. So there's 2 little EM screws go in here. Tightened up. We'll do the same with this one. And there we go. So that's that. And then we use one more EM screw to mount, it looks like an oil sump that goes on the bottom. So gearboxes need oil as lubrication, and that's exactly what this is for here. So the little gearbox sits on our gearbox oil sump, and that just goes in then. And there we have stage 5 complete. Now there is a bit of play in it, but the screw would only tighten so far, so I think our play is supposed to be there. Okay, so again we've got some spare EM and DM screws. Pop those out of the way, keep them safely, and remove the empty packaging for recycling. Wow. This is a big step now, okay. Engine, left engine block, dipstick, and ignition wire junction. Check your part, so part 6. We open the bag from the top. We can see we have our screws at the bottom. We lift those out, keep them safe, and then the packaging can be removed. So again, more metal parts. Move the gearbox safely out of the way. Okay, So, fitting and supporting the dipstick. What does it say? Take the left engine support and insert it into the bracket on the outside of the left engine block. Okay, so the engine block, this is the engine block here. Solid metal. So, yeah, we have a little support block which goes in and positions. There's only screw holes on one side. So let's get the orientation of this correct. There we go, got the correct orientation. And yep, it only fits in one way. And then 2 DM screws to hold that in there. Let me brighten this up a wee bit. Oh. So we use 2 DM screws now. And clink clink. Only goes in one way. There we go. So go ahead and tighten both those screws up. So this is actually the dipstick mount. So for those that aren't car minded, the dipstick is there to check your oil levels. So yep, you've oil in your gearbox and you've oil in your engine. So it cools and it lubricates all those hot metal parts that are moving. You don't, if you run your engine with no oil, you're not going to be able to run an engine for very long, because it will basically overheat and weld itself into a position and it will be seized. So yep, always check your oil. That's in then, so it sits like that. That's it in. There's a little bit of play in it, so I'm just going to make sure these screws are tight. Yep, both tight. So then we now take the little bit like this. So what is it? Take the lower engine block. Okay, so it's just like a little mounting pin. So again, we get our orientation correct. You can see our dots, and this goes onto here. Now, how does it go? Is it sided? No, it is. So it looks like the shorter side goes towards the engine casing, and we use a DM screw for it as well. Okay, load up a screwdriver, and it is sided, so the shortest side faces away. Yep, that's right. Having a bit of a difficulty with this, so I'm going to put the screw through the hole. Let's see, here we go. And okay, so that sits in there like so. It's like part of the engine block then. So this will actually fit to the gearbox today, which is nice to see. Okay, and now we can put the dipstick into place. So there's a hole in the casing for the dipstick to go in, and it just sort of slides in like so, it looks like. Yep, that looks like it. Yes, because then there's a manifold to go on over the top of this. So manifold takes air out of the engine as the exhaust. Okay, so we'll pop that little part down. Assembling the cylinder head. So this is where the pistons are underneath. So we've got our cylinder head. We have our exhaust manifold. So this takes the waste gases away out of the engine. And then we have one other little part here as well. Okay, so first thing we do is we mount the exhaust manifold. So we can see the holes where the exhaust manifold comes in. And there's then 3 screws which go in there. So we're going to use 3 of the AP screws. They go in. To hold the manifold in place. In reality, you'd be mounting the manifold outside using a gasket. So gaskets are just to fill up any sort of little imperfections in the 2 faces that are coming together. And you would torque up, so you would tighten all the screws that hold it on to exact same value, so there's no weakness, it's all universally tight. Okay, so there we go, there's the manifold on. And then we have a bracket, which is this little part. So this is the ignition wire junction. So we put that correct. That will sit like that. And then the cylinder head will clip on over the top. So you can see there's a space for the cylinder head. So that will go to there. Just sits on like so. And then cylinder head over the top like that. So we use the screws BP, and how many of those do we need? We need 4. So we have 4 to go in. One in. And the same principle will apply with cylinder head bolts. These all have to be torqued or tightened to the same value. Torque is a force that we use to describe the amount of turning force on an object. And it's measured in newtons. After Sir Isaac Newton, I believe. And one more. And that's that bit done. So we now need to fit the cylinder head to the cylinder block. So the dipstick comes up through the middle of the manifold, like so. Just want to make sure that dipstick's in right. Only goes in one way. Yep, only goes in one way. Now, I might actually come back to this and give it a little dab of glue in the future if I think it needs it. But for now, I won't. So we use 2 AP screws in to mount this on through the bottom, which are here. This is a big build this week. So many times I've worked at cars by torchlight, so this is still easy. Okay, so we've still got one BP screw sitting there as well that we don't need. We'll bag that back up again. Okay, that's the cylinder head mounted to the block. I think that looks fantastic. So what we now need to do then is fit the block to the gearbox. So, get our orientation correct. It'll fit like that. And then we use one DM screw, of which there are two. One will go back in the bag. Same with the BP screws and the AP screws that weren't used. Got to look after our spare parts. Okay, so balanced on the screw, through it goes, lines up with the gearbox. Like so. And that's it. So, the detail in that. That's our gearbox assembled. So the gearbox, yeah, there'll be two, because it's a V6, there'll be another cylinder head coming out this way, because it's a V shape on the cylinder. So that's the shape the engine block will sit at. So guys, that is the build finished for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions or anything about the Ecto build or anything Ghostbusters related, please feel free to get in contact with us, guys. Hope you're enjoying this build as much as we are. Thank you once again to the kind people at Eagle Moss. Without you guys, this would not be possible. You got Paul now from Ghostbusters Ireland saying, I'll see you on the other side.